MFA updates
Swadika, good morning. Welcome to MFA Update. This is a weekly program that focuses on Thailand's foreign affairs and activities. And I am Nishika Phumi. This week we are going to talk about the Thailand-EU Comprehensive Partnership and Cooperation Agreement or PCA and its benefit for Thailand. And today we have Kun Pawaree Xuto Chaipatiyut, Director of the European Union Division, Department of European Affairs, to share with us more detail on this topic.
The foreign affairs that matter. Special guests from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is the MFA Updates.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Pawaree Xuto Chaipatiyut, and I am Director of the European Union Division at the Department of European Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
All right. Kun Pawaree, the topic for today is the Thailand-EU Comprehensive Partnership and Cooperation Agreement or PCA. So could you tell us what it is and why the PCA is important for Thailand and EU relations?
Well, the PCA, as you rightly indicated just now, stands for the Comprehensive Partnership and Cooperation Agreement between Thailand, the EU, and the 27 member states of the EU. And we call this the PCA for short. I just like, if I may, go back to just under a month ago, back to the 14th of December, 2022. On that day, the PCA was signed between Thailand, the EU, and its member states. And that signing ceremony took place in Brussels. Actually, on that day, there were two events, two historic events that took place. The first was the ASEAN-EU Commemorative Summit to celebrate 45 years of dialogue relations between ASEAN and the EU. And this was the first time that the leaders of both sides met in person. And another event that took place on the sidelines of this important meeting was the signing ceremony of the PCA.
Oh.
And now Thai-EU relations are almost as long as ASEAN-EU relations, just a year younger. So this signing ceremony, the conclusion of the PCA, actually opens up a new era of a stronger and deeper cooperation and partnership between Thailand and the EU. We have actually, both sides have been engaged in this PCA process for many, many years now. As an anecdote, I think the EU back in 2004, at that time it was still the European Economic Community, approached Thailand to negotiate a partnership and comprehensive agreement. And time passed. Many things happened in between. The agreement was finally concluded in the middle of last year. And the representative on the Thai side who signed the PCA was the current Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Don Paramatvinai. And back in 2004, when the EU approached Thailand to negotiate a PCA, it was DPM Don who was then Thailand's ambassador to Brussels. So he actually brought the process full circle. You also asked what the PCA is.
Yeah, right.
My answer is that the PCA is an overarching agreement that is meant to govern the relationship between Thailand, the EU, and the 27 member states. But if I were to put it a bit more simply, I think the PCA is a roadmap or a framework for strengthening and deepening cooperation and dialogue between our two sides. Basically, it puts on paper what Thailand, the EU, its member states consider important it puts on paper the political, economic, and social values that we share. And these are things such as democracy, human rights and fundamental freedoms, the rule of law, the importance of an open economy, inclusiveness, all the way to sustainable development in general. The PCA also puts on paper the areas of cooperation we want to undertake together, and it also puts on paper the areas where we want to engage in more discussions. So from all of this, you can probably tell that the PCA is very broad in scope, but what it helps both sides do is that it serves as a legal basis for both sides to use for the resources, for the expertise, the technology, and the know-how that will eventually flow between the two sides once the PCA is implemented.
And how important is the PCA to the resumption of the Thai-EU Free Trade Agreement or FTA negotiations?
Well, the PCA will allow for many activities to exchange knowledge, know-how, and to build capacity between our two sides. And these things will take place in such areas as trade, investment, services, areas that will help to eventually create an environment conducive to the resumption of Thai-EU FTA negotiations. The EU is a norm setter, a standard setter. They are at the forefront of many important issues, such as the environment and trade. So if we can learn from them, if we can learn from one another, that will help to also raise standards and practices in Thailand as well. And this will all help to pave the way towards a resumption of FTA negotiations.
I see. It's very interesting. And can you tell us what are some of the cooperation areas under the Thailand-EU PCA?
Well, as I said earlier, the scope of cooperation under the PCA is very broad. It includes a number of different issues, but many of the issues reflect issues that are important to Thailand and to the EU and to the international community in general. These are issues such as the digital trade, personal data and privacy protection, sustainable food systems, of course, climate change, the green and the digital transitions, and women's empowerment and gender equality. So the issues are across the board, but we have to remember that the PCA is a living document. It should evolve with the times. And once the years go by and both sides see a need to perhaps update the PCA, they will do so, and also through discussions as well.
I believe that along the way there would be challenges, right? So can you share with us some of the challenges in negotiating the Thailand-EU PCA?
Yes, indeed, there were challenges. This follows on from what I just said, that the PCA reflects current issues. It's quite state of the art. So many of these issues are new for Thailand. Ocean governance, for one, or the green and the digital transition, even sustainable food systems. And they are quite cross-cutting issues, meaning they involve many different agencies, and we may not yet have a common policy on these issues, or we may not have developed related laws and regulations for these issues. So that was a challenge in finding a common ground through the negotiation. The second, I think, major challenge during the negotiations was that most of the negotiations was conducted online because of COVID and whatnot. And it was challenging because many parties were involved. The negotiations were a significant undertaking on both sides. The EU itself has many line agencies to consult. The Thai side also, we had consultations with some 55 agencies on our sides. That's 55, and we had to hold consultations at different levels, at the technical experts level, at the senior officials level as well. There were more than 25 of these internal consultations on the Thai side that took place over the last 2 years before we could conclude negotiations with the EU. But of course, we were lucky in that there was good teamwork among all of the agencies involved in the foreign ministry and outside of the foreign ministry. So at least as the foreign ministry, we have many agencies to thank for the cooperation that they gave us.
Many challenges can be overcome by teamwork.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And as you've mentioned, that Thailand and EU have already officially signed the PCA last month, right? So could you tell us what are the next steps after this?
Okay, well, I believe there are two main tasks that we have to do in parallel following the signing, and one is that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will continue the engagement, our engagement with stakeholders and civil society on the PCA, and we plan to do this by organizing seminars and perhaps also partnering with the EU delegation here in Thailand, with academic institutions and think tanks in the organization of these events. We want to continue to hear the views of the stakeholders on the PCA. The other task that we have to undertake in parallel is to submit the signed PCA to Parliament for their consideration. This is in order to achieve its ratification and also eventual implementation.
I see. And how does the MFA plan to engage with the stakeholders of the PCA as well as with the civil society?
Well, I mentioned that we want to continue our engagement with stakeholders. This is because we held a first PCA stakeholders meeting back in September of last year. Many agencies, government agencies attended, representatives of the civil society attended, and also the private sector. They gave us their views, which were all very useful, and we want to continue that conversation. So basically, it's inviting them to take part in sessions to exchange views, and we may organize these seminars on different themes and stagger the events out throughout perhaps the first half of this year.
And how about the private sector, the civil society, and Thai people? How can they benefit from the PCA?
Well, the PCA is mostly led by the government sector. But of course, all agencies in the government sector do their work with the interests of the other sectors of society in mind. So throughout the negotiations, of course, we had the interests of the private sector, of civil society, and the Thai people as a whole topmost in our minds. The PCA actually contains some provisions on facilitating business cooperation, on the importance of supporting our private sector in what they do. Other than that, it also contains a specific point on recognizing the important role played in the overall Thai-EU relationship of the civil society. Because what moves the relationship forward are all sectors of society.
Yeah.
And also, another example of the benefits that will eventually trickle down to these other sectors can be found in the area of environment and natural resources. The cooperation that Thailand will carry out with the EU in this area in order to help protect the environment can eventually lead to enhancing, say, the participation of local communities in this effort as well. And this will help to raise the sense of ownership that they feel in the wider effort to realize sustainable development. And also, because the EU has much expertise in different areas, a lot of know-how. If they sit down at the table, talk with us, with Thailand, exchange experiences, share knowledge and know-how, it could lead to, let's say, stronger efforts in the area of sustainable forest management or whatever area that we're discussing. So I would hope that the benefits of the PCA, although government sector-led, will flow to the other sectors of society through things such as I mentioned.
I see. And if we look from the EU's perspective, what benefits do the EU and its member states expect from the Thailand-EU PCA?
I think that first of all, if you consider the current geopolitical and geo-economic environment that we find ourselves in, having a PCA with Thailand is important because it means that Thailand and the EU and its member states are partners, and we have to work together in order to deal with the challenges that we all currently face geopolitically, geo-economically. I think the PCA shows that both our sides, we have things to offer one another, and we have goals to accomplish. In terms of things to offer one another, let's just take a look at the area of trade and investment, say. Thailand and the EU are already strong trade and investment partners. The trade volume, the investment volume between our two sides are on an increasing trend. And Thailand is also a significant investor in Europe. Right now, given current geopolitics, current geoeconomics, the EU is looking to diversify its trade. And having a PCA with Thailand means having a partner in which to do exactly that. We can be a stronger trade partner for one another. And also the EU is looking to enhance its role in the Indo-Pacific. Having a PCA with Thailand and having Thailand as an important part of ASEAN will also help the EU in that respect. So we have things to offer one another. We have goals that we want to achieve together. Yeah.
I would like to come back to our region, to our neighboring countries. Can you tell us which ASEAN countries have already concluded the PCA with the EU?
Sure. Well, to start off, Thailand is the sixth ASEAN member state, number 6, to finalize negotiations with the EU. The EU already has PCAs with Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Singapore, and Malaysia. However, this doesn't mean that all PCAs are already ratified or already implemented. All of these ASEAN member states are at different stages of this entire process. Actually, another anecdote that I would like to share with you is that Malaysia actually concluded negotiations on the PCA with the EU about 5 years ago, but they were only able to sign the PCA on the same day as we signed it on the 14th of December in Brussels on the margins of the ASEAN-EU commemorative summit. Now this is because of internal politics and other reasons, but you can see from this that all of the ASEAN member states are at different stages in their internal process.
I see. All right. Thank you so much, Kun Pawaree. It was a very insightful talk. So thank you so much for being in our show today.
Yes, well, you're very welcome, and thank you for engaging in the conversation with me.
That was Kun Pawaree Xuto Chaipatiyut, Director of the European Union Division, Department of European Affairs, on the Thailand-EU PCA and its benefit for Thailand. With that, we conclude our program for this week. If you want to listen to the previous episode of the MFA Update, please visit the YouTube channel MFA Thailand, or you can check out our Facebook page, FM88 Radio Thailand English. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you next time. I am Nishika Phumi. สวัสดีค่ะ
MFA updates